Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems, and with me is Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute.
The interaction of sales is a unique setting because often you're trying to motivate yourself, your team, and prospects. Motivation means to move emotionally. To achieve maximum motivation and productivity for you and others, it's important to consider and engage the different types of motivation. Get prepared to be moved emotionally as Bill and I discuss what is your motivation, that and much more on episode 456 of Winning at Selling podcast.
Well, last week, Scott, we had a great conversation with Frank Cespedes about sales management. So I would recommend, if people haven't listened to that episode 455, get it on your playlist. Go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, I've listened to it 3 times already. And every time I listen to it, I get another tidbit that Frank said that I was just so overwhelmed with all of his advice that it was tough to grasp it on one take.
Yeah, and he's got a great book out there. If you're in sales management, you really ought to pick up Sales Management That Works by Frank Cespedes.
And we've got a link to that on our show notes at episode 455 at Winning at Selling podcast.
All right. So let's go into our book club, Psycho-Cybernetics. We're winding this down. We're on chapter 13, How to Turn a Crisis into a Creative Opportunity. And he starts out by talking about how do we respond to a challenge or a crisis? Are we the type of person that rises to the occasion, or do we choke? I was thinking about this. I just started playing pickleball about a year ago. I know this isn't a challenging or crisis situation, but I think sports is always a good metaphor. And I do find that when I play with a lower quality partner or a lower ability partner, I play down to them rather than playing up to them. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about is do I make them better or do they make me worse in that challenging situation? So I have some things I have to work on.
Right. Yeah. The opening sentence of the book of this chapter, he talked about a young golfer who holds the all-time course record at his home course, yet he has never played in a big tournament. He doesn't take risks. Maybe he's consumed with failure, doesn't want to be challenged, doesn't want to grow, and just wants to stay right where he is. And there are some people that are like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But we need to think about, are we going to be complacent, or do we want to grow and change and get better? And in order for us to do that, we need to be golfing on a different course occasionally.
I'm reading Mindset, the book Mindset by Carol Dweeb, I think it is, at the same time as I'm reading this. And I just can't express enough the parallels. So if you haven't read Mindset, you might pick that up. But she talks about the fixed mindset. And when you talk about that golfer, when we're afraid of failure, so afraid of failure that we won't even practice something new, because to practice in the fixed mindset says, I'm not talented enough. To play and lose is so challenging that I won't try a different course. I think that's very interesting where she talks about the growth mindset is somebody who will do all the things that Maxwell Maltz is talking about in this chapter, which is to practice and promote success and try hard things. And yet the fixed mindset won't do that, but the growth mindset will. So just an interesting parallel.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story the late, great Tom Wininger shared one time. He said, you're never going to get good playing tennis if you just keep hitting the ball off the garage door. You got to play tennis with somebody who's going to hit it back harder than you hit it. And I think, that's kind of the analogy with the pickleball is, you end up playing against somebody that's a little stronger, you end up getting stronger.
That's
you play up to them.
If you change your mindset, if you don't give up before it starts, which we can do too, right? We get into a challenging situation and this is hopeless. So then we just kind of go through the motions. So one of the things he talks about is the money player, someone who's really good in challenging situations. And I'm a baseball fan, so Reggie Jackson was always Mr. October because he hit more home runs in the playoffs in October. And Michael Jordan was always known for, the person who took the last shot. He always wanted the ball. And here's a quote from him. I never looked at the consequences of missing a big shot. Why? Because when you think about the consequences, you always think of a negative result. Some people get frozen by the fear of failure. They get it from peers or from just thinking about the possibility of negative results. They might be afraid of looking bad or being embarrassed. I realized if I was going to achieve anything in life, I had to be aggressive. I had to get out there and go for it. I don't believe you can achieve anything by being passive. I'm not thinking about anything except what I'm trying to accomplish. Any fear is an illusion. You think something is standing in your way, but nothing really is there. What is there is an opportunity to do your best and gain some success. If it turns out my best isn't good enough, then at least I'll never be able to look back and say I was too afraid to try. Failure always made me try harder the next time. Michael Jordan.
Wow, that's great. It really means you got to take risks, and you got to kind of know where you are too. And if you're not making it, then you know, where do you stand? There's some room for improvement.
No, it's like you talked about, right? If I'm not failing once in a while, I'm never on the edge.
Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about creativity and stress, and I noticed that for me, when I'm under a tremendous amount of stress, I don't have the creativity. When I'm not stressed, then the ideas just really flow. And
see, and I'm exactly the opposite. When I sit down to write, I can't think of anything. When I'm when I'm up in front of a group, my brain has all kinds of things that come to me.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I record what I do, and then I write it later.
No, that's a great move. That's a great move.
So we respond differently to those things, right?
Yeah. So creativity, and I just saw a great program on Amazon Prime on Mark Twain, and he suffered from excessive imagination at the end of his career. And I'm like, wow, there's an incredible two words put together, excessive imagination. And I say that in the context is Mark Twain finished out his life as an investor. He was one of the richest men in America, the most popular name around the world. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to do the stand up and the concerts where he would, talk and do oratory. He just wanted to be home. And he started investing in different projects. And he was approached to invest in the telephone. And, he said, why would anybody need that? I'd have one at my office, and I'd have one at my publishing house, and maybe at my attorney's. So why else would anybody else ever need something like that? Never. But he invested in this other machine that just went south. The narrator said that he suffered from excessive imagination. He saw things that were not there, but his imagination made it true. And he wanted to invest in what he created in his imagination.
Well, when they invented the computer, I think at IBM, they said, well, maybe there's a need for 16 or 17 of these things.
Yeah. And why would anybody need larger than 100 megabyte hard drive? I don't understand.
Well, I sold TRS-80s when they first came out.
Yeah.
I was on the cusp of computers, and we had no idea what we were going to do with them. We were selling them. We had no programs to put on them. And we're like, what can you do with it? Like, I don't know. You couldn't, the printers were like $2,000. It was just crazy. But yeah, we've got to imagine things that can be better. And that's why he talks about the shadow boxing. I really like that image, to practice without pressure by imagining things. You don't have to have the other person there to box with. You don't have to have the customer there to talk to, but you can imagine doing things well. And if you've read any of Dennis Waitley, he talks a lot about when he worked with the Olympic athletes, having them practice things just in their mind. And then go out and make them happen once they'd already convinced themselves they could do it perfectly.
Yeah. One of the last things he said in this chapter is the secret lies in an attitude of fearlessly accepting the challenge and confidently expanding our strengths. And I really thought that was a good way to close up the chapter, and to be able to look at the opportunities you have, to be able to focus on them, not to choke, and to be able to deliver on what you want to achieve based on what you've already played in your mind.
That's the key right there, right?
Yeah.
Is that we have got to believe it in our mind first before it's going to happen in real time.
Yeah.
It's got to happen there first. So excellent chapter. So excited about this. Hopefully our listeners are following along in the book as we wrap this up. What's our next book going to be, Scott?
We're going to be using the book, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. And it's a book on the sales process. It's published by Franklin Covey.
So we're right back into the sales process again.
Yeah. Excellent. And if you're just tuning in and you're just getting caught up, you go back and listen to previous episodes, and you can always get caught up on where we are in the book.
Perfect. This segment has been brought to you by the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program, presented by the hosts of the Winning at Selling podcast.
Every professional athlete has a coach, someone to assist and advise. Tiger Woods had 4 swing coaches so that he could stay at the top of his game. What would you like to improve or overcome in the next year? Perhaps as a salesperson, you want to be more productive with your prospecting, overcoming objections, or delivering more effective presentations. As a sales manager, you want to create a spark within your sales team with a new message, a refreshed approach to starting new conversations with prospects, or you are looking for market-ready strategies to increase revenue and shorten the sales cycle with your existing team. Or as a business leader, you want to transform the sales culture and your value proposition for the new marketplace. Whatever your reason, this is the perfect time to engage with an experienced sales coach. That is why your hosts of Winning at Selling podcast, Professor Scott Plum and Bill Hellkamp, have developed the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Now you can receive personal coaching from the same sales professionals you enjoy on this podcast. It all starts with a discussion to give us insights into your specific goals, challenges, needs, and motivation. Go to winningatselling.com to contact Bill or Scott about the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Do you believe you deserve better results? Now is the time to invest in yourself, your people, and your customers, and invest in your future. So our topic today is on motivation. And I've listed 11 different types of motivation. And we're going to really break it down into 2 categories. One is an intrinsic motivation. We've got 5 types that support that. And intrinsic motivation means that it represents all things that motivate you based on an internal reward like self-improvement or helping a friend in need. It's something that you do it because of who you are. It's an internal reward that you feel. And then there's the extrinsic motivation, and there's 4 types of motivation that support that. And an extrinsic motivation represents all the things that motivate you based on an external reward like money or praise. Mm-hmm. And everything that the motivations fall into those 2 categories.
So internal and external, right?
Yeah,
how you feel yourself, and then the rewards. So excellent.
Right. So Bill, I'm kind of curious, what do you think is the most important motivation when you're in sales?
Well, I guess my feeling is whatever motivates you. I don't know what motivates you necessarily, Scott. I can only deal with what motivates me. And in my dealing with people it can be any one of these different types. I don't know what these types are you're going to talk about exactly, but the most important thing is I have to motivate me. I have to get myself up in the morning. And what is it? Is it security? Is it money for my kids? Is it making sure I can make my house payments? I mean, I've talked to people that have been in businesses where their bosses encourage them to get in a lot of debt so that they're motivated by these extrinsic forces of, I better pay my bill because I've got 3 car payments and a house payments I have to make. So depends on what motivates you.
Right. And that can be a really tough spot. And in some cases it works great. I mean, everybody wins on that. The salespeople
if that doesn't cause you to get paralyzed.
Right. Yeah.
We can have so many outside factors that we go, I can't do it. Kind of like what we talked about with sports. If I feel like I can't win, I quit.
Right. Yeah. So in looking at sales, most studies have found that the intrinsic motivation is found in the most successful salespeople because of their high desire and their high commitment to themselves, and that intrinsic motivation that they want to be able to self-improve and be the person that they want to be and represent that in the success of their activities. There is, I think, a bit of a myth that salespeople are motivated by money. That can be good and bad. In some cases, a salesperson that's motivated by money is maybe going to take shortcuts in order to make more money, or they're going to leave a current employer to make more money someplace else.
Yeah. So maybe is it the best salespeople that are intrinsic, or maybe there's loyalty and there's other factors going on? I mean, I might be as motivated by an external source, but it may, as you say, cause me to jump ship earlier or just go for the shiniest object. Whereas if I have internal motivation, I might be more loyal, or I might be more committed to the long term.
Yeah, the extrinsic motivation, it starts to get into the carrot and the stick. If you're in management, you start doing that with salespeople, and it can be very frustrating because they don't do anything unless there's a bonus or an incentive or a higher commission on some things that
Right.
they'll sell it or they won't sell it. So let's go through some of the intrinsic motivations.
Okay.
There's a competency and learning motivation. So this motivation is also known as the learning motivation, that states that people are motivated more by the process itself rather than the reward at the end. So they like following a system and a procedure. And I guess they're thinking that the ways justify the means,
Right.
and they
Right.
like to follow a system, and they like learning. I'm in Strength Finders, one of my top strengths is learner.
Mhm.
So if I ever feel like I'm down or not motivated, I start reading a book, and boy, within the first couple of pages, my spirit is high, my attitude is high, and I'm motivated again because I'm learning something.
Yeah, I can't help but again filter this through this mindset book where there's people, the growth mindset people are learning motivated, but the fixed mindset people are not learning motivated. So this might break along those lines somewhat, that the fixed mindset maybe is more external motivation, and the growth mindset person is more internal. I'm kind of curious about this with your list here, but
it gets to battling complacency. Some people
Right.
just love being in a comfort zone, and that's where they find security. And it's like, oh, okay, I've arrived.
Right,
I'm comfortable.
right.
And
well, that comfort zone, I think, is bad for all of us, because
Yeah.
we get warm and fuzzy in there, and then we don't do that. We quit doing the hard things, right?
well, something else changes in our life, or something event happens in our life where we have to change, and unfortunately our adaptation skills are really dull at that point.
A long time ago. Yeah.
It's like, oh
Yeah.
God, I gotta
Let me go find
now.
it. Let's go back to the way it used to be.
Right.
In my day.
Yeah. Another
I'm
motivation.
afraid I'm getting to that, right? I'm in my 60s, so it's like, in my day,
Right.
I have to watch out that I'm not.
Law of contrast. You're comparing one thing against another. Another one is the attitude motivation. And that refers to the type of motivation that's cultivated through the desire to change the way you are and the way other people think and feel. So you really want to work on enhancing their attitude and motivating them through maybe some pep talks or, some motivational quotes.
You're saying that people are motivated by helping them think more clearly, or helping them think better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adding a little bit more clarity, I think.
Okay.
Achievement motivation. And I love this one. Achievement motivation starts with people that are driven by a desire to pursue and achieve specific goals.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at achievement and wanting to achieve a certain goal, the money generally follows.
Right.
So when we think about extrinsic money motivated versus intrinsic achievement motivated, if we seek the knowledge about our products, and I think to have product knowledge is important. It's not everything to have product knowledge. I think one thing that is really discounted these days in sales is market knowledge. And I don't think that salespeople bring enough context of the market to the application of their solution for prospects to be able to understand and define the value.
Well, I think it's getting harder. It's easier and harder to get market knowledge. And that is the amount of information is so great out there now, that to get yourself focused in a particular area can often be challenging. Because I recommend this to salespeople as well, is that you need to bring more knowledge to the marketplace than just my product or service, but how it relates in the whole marketplace. But as that expands and gets bigger, and there's so much more information, I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed by that amount of information.
But as you say that, and you say there's so much information out there, that's one of the benefits that a prospect has in working with a salesperson, that brings them relative information that's related to the challenge that the prospect has. So the prospect does not have to sift through all of the other information and get distracted with stuff that's not important. So,
and a lot of the industry knowledge you bring into that is by working with other customers. So it's not really a research type of knowledge, but it's an experiential knowledge where you're just learning more each customer that you get to work with.
Yeah, true. Another one is creative motivation. And creative motivation means that people are motivated by creativity or an innate drive to creative expression. And this is where people are motivated to write a book. You see some people that have been through a situation in their life, and they want to write a book about it.
Mhm.
And they're really expressing this creativity, motivation, and they're going to get up every morning and they're write, and they're on a roll when they're motivated by that.
I think too, we probably hear this when we're doing sales training. Quite often when we have new salespeople, they don't have any kind of a jargon. They don't have a pattern to follow. And so we might give them a phone track or something that they can work with. And quite often from this creatively motivated person, they might say, well, I don't want to just sound canned, right? I don't want to just say what everyone else says. And it's like, well, yeah, but start there and then get creative from that. So I think we have to be careful that we don't want to have to recreate the wheel all the time, but we can add creativity as we get better at something. I remember one of my sons wanted to cook, and so we said, okay, Tom, why don't you read the recipes and then follow those? And he said, no, I just want to make it all up from scratch. Well, he didn't have enough information to make it up from scratch. So as we're learning to sell more effectively, we need to sometimes read the recipe so we don't just end up with slop, and then get creative based on that former recipe rather than starting from scratch.
Yeah. The last one for intrinsic motivation is a psychological motivation. And often humans are driven by some internal force beyond their explanation. And I really define this is what love is. When you are in love and you're motivated by being in love with another person, and you end up doing things because of that other person in your life.
Right.
And maybe it's, physical fitness, maybe it's, cutting down on other habits, maybe it's focusing your recreation away from something to spend more time to another area, etc.
Yep. Well, I think too, I'm a father and you're a big brother, right? So you were the caretaker, I think, for a lot of younger brothers and sisters. And that can drive you to know that you're responsible for other people, and that love that you have for them, wanting them to have maybe a chance to go to college, or maybe having a good start to life when they leave your home. That is one of the strongest, I think, motivations. We always talk about, coming home and your kids are asleep and you just sit with them for a few minutes and think about what I'm doing for you, for your future, right? Is very important. So that love, that commitment to others, I think that physiological motivation can be very strong.
And this gets into a little bit of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, we all have social emotional needs. It's basically the way we're wired as human beings. And to be able to have that connection with another person can be very motivational.
Absolutely.
So on to the external motivation. So the first one is incentive. So incentive motivation, unlike achievement motivation, says that people are motivated more by the reward than the achievement of the goal itself. And it's kind of these salespeople that go, what's in it for me? You want me to sell this other item that's harder to sell, but this one over here is easier to sell, and I got a shorter sales cycle here. It's not as much work for me to go through. Why would I want to sell something over here? Well, we're going to put an incentive on it. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to push it because there's an extra $300 attached to that.
The old spiff program.
Yeah. Or we're having a contest this month. And
well, and you and I have both helped companies design incentive programs and reward programs and contests, as it were. And I think that's very important to be able to do, but don't be surprised when your salespeople, who are motivated by these incentives and motivated by this quick hit money, do exactly what you're motivating them to do. That's what's always interesting to me when the sales manager says, well, all they sold was X. It's like, well, you put an incentive on X. What did you expect them to do?
Right. Yeah.
That they're not stupid. If they're going to spend their time selling, they're going to get twice as much for selling X. They're going to sell it. You sold a lot of it.
Exactly.
So they did what as I say, people do what they are rewarded for. Yeah. Whatever these rewards are, if they're emotional rewards or if they're monetary rewards, people do what you reward them for, and don't be surprised when they do that.
Yeah, my saying is reward the behavior you want to inspire.
Right.
So, and know that what you're rewarding is inspiring them to do something in that area.
Right.
The next motivation is fear motivation, which is motivated by consequences to drive people into action.
If you don't hit your goals this year, you're fired.
Yeah. First place is a Cadillac. Second place, steak knives. Third place, you're fired. For our avid salespeople that know what movie that is. And there's some management that uses fear for motivation.
Yep.
And, if we want to achieve the goal and we don't care how we get there, then, this might be one of the areas. But it's something that I think when they lead with a lot of fear, it just creates a very negative culture.
You want to watch some Simon Sinek. He really hates fear motivation. And that we fire. You did a really good job, but we're gonna do a reduction in force, and 10% of you are going to be gone, no matter how good a job you do. I think also the situation I mentioned before, where someone encourages you to get into a lot of debt. Go ahead and buy that Cadillac, or go ahead and buy that expensive car and put it on payments. That'll motivate you. Well, that is a fear motivation, that I'm going to lose my car, lose my home, lose my family if I don't get these things done right. It's the opposite of that physiological or love motivation, but I put myself in so much debt that I have to perform every day, and I'm doing that out of fear.
Yeah. Next one is power motivation, which is motivational factor that says people are motivated by control over their own lives and the lives of others. And we've all met some people that I think are really drunk on power. They want to be in control. And if you don't follow their advice, then, you become disassociated with them, or you're disloyal to them. And all of a sudden there's consequences to that. So they're going to teach you a lesson if you don't follow their advice in the future.
Yeah. I've got advice for you if you run into that person.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Run away. Run away. I was talking with a young person the other day, and he was just asking me some things, and we are talking about the promotion ability at his group, and they were always promoting from without, even though people were ready from the sales force within. And I said, my advice to people is, if you're working for an organization that doesn't reflect your values, leave it.
Right.
Find something else. You are not going to change the organization. If you want to get promoted and they always promote from without, leave. If you want to do a good job and they don't reward people for doing a good quality job, leave. If you build up good customers and they reward only, if you build up long-term customers and they only reward the first sale, get out of there. What you value and what you're good at are not valued by the organization. And this power one is one where it really comes down to the fore, and you should recognize it quickly.
Yeah. The last one is affiliation and social motivation. So humans are social creatures, and social motivation, also known as affiliation motivation, states that people are motivated by social factors like belonging and accepting. And
that's part of Maslow's.
Yeah. Yep. And we see kind of this with salespeople that want to work for a big company or a famous brand, or, they want to be affiliated with a certain organization that they've been accepted into. They've applied and their application was accepted.
Yeah, that's very important to them, to get into the right crowd.
Yeah. And to be part of the social clubs.
Right.
And
right.
that define their value.
Yeah. Something that I've seen is, the more prestigious an organization appears to be, the less they pay you. You're going to make a lot more selling garbage hauling services than you are selling Mr. Fancy Pants, soda products or whatever. They tend to reward you with, you work for Coca-Cola, so that's all you need. And but you're going to get more you're going to get paid more because you have a little bit more work to do. They assume Coca-Cola sells itself. So you don't need to do anything but stock the shelves.
Right. So in summarizing everything, the best motivational strategy is to blend multiple types together, giving yourself maximum motivation. However, the certain situations might call for a specific blend of motivational forces and factors.
Well, my thought is that it's whatever motivates you, right? I don't know if I can say, okay, I'm going to be motivated by power now, because that's the best one to be motivated by at this particular time. Power may not motivate me. If power motivated me, I wouldn't be a solopreneur. I would want to build this organization that I could, run. So I think the thing that you really need to do that is to look at what motivates you. I think positive self-talk is important to stay focused. And I would write out an affirmation statement. What is it that motivates you? Write it into your affirmation statement and read it numerous times during the day. And that will help keep you motivated, keep you focused on those things that motivate you.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to recognize when other types of motivation are being applied on you so that you can be able to recognize it. And you might have to come back with power motivation when somebody's giving you power motivation. And that's how you're able to really combat this.
Right.
So
so be careful when people are trying to lead you astray through some sort of motivation that doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah. But also work on managing your own motivation and what's going to cause you to get up in the morning and be able to take on the day. So
you are responsible for you.
Yeah. The source of this, I posted it on LinkedIn on my my LinkedIn page, and I want to give credit to the author. His name is Evan Tarver, who came up with these 11 types. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to see the source, and I'll have the link there.
All right, good. And on our webpage, winningatselling.com, my article, Get Going, will be linked to that.
Good. We'll have that there. This segment of Winning at Selling podcast is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door by Steve Kloida.
Steve Kloida was known internationally for increasing salespeople's ability to make solid appointments with qualified prospects. You too can learn this essential skill by ordering a copy of his superb book, The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door. In this book, Steve shares the top strategies and tactics he has developed, implemented, and personally tested with more than 1 million sales and prospecting calls. You can get his book on the website, theprospectingexpert.com. In addition, check out his other great online resources. Instant Sales Coaching, which will guide you through 5 online success modules. A guided prospecting process entitled Call Reluctance Transformer, and the Magnetic Selling Strategies Workbook, a detailed step-by-step guide to increasing your sales. Get any of these valuable resources at theprospectingexpert.com.
Our golden nugget today: action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action, by William James.
Like William James.
And I always say when we're in a rut, our attitude is bad, commit to the behavior. And it's just like putting in a 4-wheel drive high, and commit to the behavior, and you're just going to be able to roll right out of that rut. It's not attitude that really brings success. You just can't walk around the office singing, I've got a bluebird on my shoulder. You got to do something. Right. And action solves a lot of problems.
Well, I heard a speaker once say, no one ever got better by sitting at home and watching TV.
Right.
Or playing a video game or whatever. All you do is get distracted. And those are not the actions. Figure out those actions. Again, I always talk about what are the 3 or 4 actions you need to be taking every day. Making those phone calls, following up with clients, whatever those actions are, do those 2 or 3 actions every day, and you will feel better about yourself. Even if every one of those actions fails, you did what you could do.
Yeah, it reminds me of the CEO of Lamborghini was asked, why don't you advertise on TV? And he said, because our customers are not there. So if you want to drive a Lamborghini, you're not sitting around watching TV.
Yeah, that's right. Old versions of Frasier.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
All right.
Everything that we talk about today will be at winningatselling.com. This is episode 456. We'll have our show notes there.
Next week, chapter 14 of Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, how to get and keep that winning feeling. And our topic will be dealing with procurement, the evil procurement people.
Oh, purchasing agents, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They have horns and forked sticks and terrible. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.